Live from the Marina Variety Store Restaurant in downtown Charleston, it's the Coach Brent Thompson Show here on ESPN Radio 94.7 and 910 AM as we get ready for Citadel football this weekend with Mercer on the road Saturday. We preview that tonight, look back at the most recent game a couple weeks ago against Chattanooga and talk about what the past week has been like for the Bulldogs. Coach, how are you?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm certainly a lot better than I was last week, sitting around just waiting to hear what we're going to do. But just glad to be back at work. I don't know, a lot of people don't say that, but when you're in the middle of football season and you take about 5 to 7 days off, that can be a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I could imagine. You know, prior to this stop, I was working in minor league baseball where you work for 140 days straight throughout the season, and when you do get a day off, you almost don't know what to do with yourself. I imagine it's the same with a football coach and how busy you are. You don't really know what to do with that downtime.
Yeah, I kept on, everybody that I ran into, I kept on saying, I'm just a man without a team right now, and I don't even know what I'm going to do. There's only so much game planning you can do. I was in the office a couple days, but certainly it was very quiet, and there's very quiet on campus, eerily quiet on campus, and we still had some really nice weather, but you wanted to get out, and there's not a whole lot you could do. You can go work out a little bit, but that was about all we did.
First and foremost, did you personally make it through that storm okay? Your family, everyone's okay?
Yeah, we were fine. My mom and dad are actually from Wilmington. They came down and spent the last about 7 days with us. Just went back home today. I guess they had a little bit of damage at their house. Still have no power, but they'll get through it a little bit.
Well, we hope the best for them, and we look forward to getting back to football after the week off because of that storm, and we wish the best for everybody up in North Carolina who had to deal with the hurricane. Fortunately, it didn't hit us too bad here in Charleston, but still caused the postponement of that game with Charleston Southern. Let's begin by talking about this past week before we look back at the last game and then even look ahead at the upcoming game Saturday on the road. When something like that happens, you have to worry about the hurricane. You talk about the game and your different options. What is that whole process like to try to figure out what the best plan is to try to handle a storm like that?
Yeah, that was difficult. That one was a little bit more slower of a moving. I mean, I've been through this. That was my third hurricane. So that one was a little bit more challenging. It was, first of all, it hit earlier on in the week. We had just practiced one day on Sunday. So if we were going to try to play the game, which we did consider, both parties, Charleston Southern and the Citadel, both considered trying to play the game, we said that, we've got to find a place where we can practice, where we can have some resources. And we looked into the Greenville situation like we did last year and the year before that, as Charleston Southern was looking into the same thing with them. But then it became a little bit problematic where they didn't have enough rooms up there, enough room for two teams up there, and then you got to play up there. Then you don't know what you're going to get when you come back home. So this was a little bit different than the last two times. The last two times we had a couple of days to prepare, a couple of practices at home. You had your resources. You could take it on the road without. So Tuesday practice is usually the day that you really need to get in. Tuesday, and it's a bonus to get Wednesday in on some of those shorter weeks. So that was all the consideration. When it all boiled down to it, you had two teams that were in the same vicinity. We couldn't go up to Ladson and play like we did the last 2 years, go up to North Greenville or go up to Presbyterian last year. So it was best to decide that we just said, hey, we'll call this game off. We'll try to reschedule it because it's important to both teams. And if we can make it work, we'll make it work.
And as you said, 3 straight years now to have to deal with something like this. As a football coach, I'm sure you expect some adversity, but maybe not in the eyes of Mother Nature, having to schedule around a hurricane for 3 straight years now. Does it get any easier? Have they been similar at all in your planning to be able to handle something like that?
The first two were more closely related. I knew what I was getting into last year after going through it the first year. I was a little bit more relaxed with it last year. Hey, we're going to take the show on the road. We did this last year. We made it through just fine. This year was just a little bit different than the rest of them, of course. The prep time was different. The location was different and where we were going. Plus, the storm was different. This was a Category 5, and it started off at a Category 5, and we didn't know where it was going to land. So at that point, you're not really safe anywhere. You're looking to really just kind of get out. We talked about maybe trying to go to Savannah. We talked about maybe trying to play it somewhere down in Florida. But really, when it came down to it, we couldn't find a viable option early enough. When these things come upon you that quickly, we were trying to keep the game in Charleston as long as we could until we had to evacuate.
A lot of games were affected by the storm over the weekend in multiple states, and a lot of fans out there were actually angry that they didn't have their football teams to watch. But as a coach of a football team, you have over 100 players, obviously your staff. I imagine at times you're like a father figure and you feel responsible for these guys, and at the end of the day, of course, you want to play as many games as you can, win as many games, but first and foremost, I'm sure the player's safety is most important in a situation like that. And
that's what Coach Tucker and I discussed at Charleston Southern. Is we talked briefly on, I believe it was Monday night. And he said, look, Coach, he said, I've got 100 players here. I've got to make some decisions here as to what we're going to do. Is it okay with you that we try to reschedule this thing? And I said, Coach, I'm going through the same thing here. I've got parents here that are concerned. They're just not knowing what to do and what the situation is going to be. We need to make some decisions here fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. And so we both, and it was great. You know, I've known Coach Tucker. I've met him a couple of times. He's a good man, so we were able to kind of come to an agreement that it was best for both parties to say, hey, we'll try to reschedule this game because we do want to play it.
Yeah, and that game will be rescheduled, or has been rescheduled, and will be played November 29th, a week after Thanksgiving, Thursday night game here in Charleston at Johnson Haygood Stadium. How important was it to still find a way to get that game, keep it on schedule, as opposed to just canceling it outright?
There's two things with that game. One is it was a one that I wanted to get back on the schedule 2 years ago when we did stop playing them. I thought it was a great rivalry game. We had some pretty good going back and forth with those guys, and they've gotten the better of us over the last few years. We want to take another shot at them. But those games have been close, and they've been pretty tight ball games. They've come down to the fourth quarter game, so those are always exciting games. So when we came down to rescheduling the game, we said, look, we want to reschedule this thing, but make it a little bit more of kind of an interesting game, a little more of a bowl experience type of game. We just don't want to get it in the next week, which is Thanksgiving. We're just going to try to squeeze it in a Thanksgiving week. So we thought it would be best to go Thursday of the next week right there, give us a little bit of Thanksgiving break coming off in Alabama. We'll practice a few days. Mm-hmm. We'll go home for Thanksgiving. We'll come back Sunday, and then we'll prep again for the next week. So if both teams don't make the playoffs, that's our plan. And I think it'll be a great, fun, interesting game. It'll be one of just a couple of games on TV or in Charleston. And I think we'll have good fan attendance here. We should have good weather.
Yeah, that makes for a really cool night. As you mentioned, a Thursday night in November. Nothing else really going on. The only show in town, and two rivals and local schools here in Charleston. So when you look at the dates and the options, we don't want to look ahead. You know, that's the last game of the season, but that should be a fun one to finish out the year with Charleston Southern, reigniting that rivalry on a Thursday night here in town.
Yeah, I thought that was the best of all possible solutions. We kicked around everything from Thursday Thanksgiving to Saturday of Thanksgiving week to Thursday, Friday, or Saturday of the following week. And it was brought up, why don't we try a Thursday night game? We don't do it very often. We may have done it once at the Citadel. It'd be interesting for the core to come out and have an exciting Thursday night game. So we thought it was the best of all the options. And moving forward, I'm excited for it. Hopefully we don't have a chance to play it, but we certainly would like to get another game in if possible.
Now, looking at the schedule, the way it lays out currently, you move that game from this past week to the end of the season, tentatively, and you now head to Mercer this upcoming week. So 3 straight games in the conference. Of course, what turns into somewhat of a bye week here, an off week leading into the Mercer game. The way the schedule is currently constructed, aside from, take the hurricane out of it, does this in some ways work better for you guys? Or do you wish that you had that Charleston Southern game to be able to play last week, leading into the Mercer game now?
Yeah, I think we would like to have that game. It was you don't know what you're going to get after 7 days off, and we came back to work on Monday ready to go, and it was very apparent that we had taken 7 days off. The good thing is we rallied back on Tuesday, and I thought we had one of our best practices of the year on Tuesday. Today was an average practice. Today was one of those practices where we could tell we're over it, we're ready to get to the game. We had a good practice Tuesday. So I felt like, we had to knock some of the rust off. We've got to be very simplistic in our game plan. We've got to be able to just go out there and execute. We also get a little bit weary of our conditioning. When you haven't done anything for 7 days, you send them home in the hope that they do something, that they go out and then they run, or if the weather permits it, and those kind of things. But in actuality, that probably doesn't happen. So we had to get them back into a little bit of shape. So we went three heavy days right in a row here where we were doing some heavy lifting.
Many may be surprised at how big of a difference that makes, that you put in all that work, you take 7 days off, and you lose a lot of that work. Is that typically the case, or is that more because of how early in the season this is? What was it like to take that week off and get back into it now?
I don't think football is a game that you can take off because there are so many intricacies between plays, fundamentals, and techniques that it's going to be difficult to be able to take any time off. Plus, it is early on in the year, and you do have a heat factor here. And once you get out of that acclimation, that can be very difficult for us.
So now getting ready for Mercer this upcoming weekend, and we'll dive deeper into that game later here in the show. But still talking about what the past week has been like and the postponement and the reschedule with the Hurricane Florence in the area. As touched on, you move that game to the end of the year, so now all the way until October 13th, only one home game to start the season for you and the Bulldogs. Does that make things more challenging here to open up the first half of the season?
Yeah, certainly not ideal, but once again, we've been through this before. What we tell our guys every year when this happens the past 2 years is you've got to be very appreciative of when you do get a chance to play at home. When you do play at home, as you start to realize that, hey, there is a home field advantage for us. There is something to being able to stay in our own hotel, to be able to stay in our own homes and those kind of things that we can't take for granted every time because we've lost a couple of games over the last few years.
Well, we should tell you we're at the Marina Variety Store Restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive here in downtown Charleston for the Coaches Show. And talking about the hurricane situation here in Charleston this past week and how that disrupted things for the Citadel. When we come back, we'll recap the most recent game 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago now, the loss against Chattanooga. Coach may have wanted to move on from that, but we're going to have to bring it back up and talk about that a little bit. And then eventually we'll look ahead to the game with Mercer this weekend as the Bulldogs get back out onto the field and back into conference play Saturday in Georgia with a big game against the Mercer Bears. Coach's wings are here, so we're going to take a break, give them a chance to dig in a little bit, and when we come back, we'll look back at the game against Chattanooga from a couple of weeks ago. It's the Coach Brent Thompson Show here from the Marina Variety Store Restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive. Just want to remind you, if you want to get involved, you can ask your questions online. Use the hashtag AskCoachThompson on Twitter, and we'll pick a few to use on the air if you submit those before we go off the air at the top of the hour. It's the Coach Brent Thompson Show from the Marina Variety Store Restaurant. We'll be back with more here on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
Hey Bulldog fans, I'm Danielle Hensley, and this is your Bulldog Breakdown. Due to Hurricane Florence, some athletic events were canceled last week, including women's soccer against Jacksonville. They'll start play this week on Friday at Samford before traveling to Chattanooga on Sunday to take on the Mocs at 2 p.m. Volleyball had to postpone their match at Winthrop, which was originally scheduled for last Tuesday. This week, the Dogs will take the court at South Carolina State on Wednesday before starting conference play on Friday. They will host UNCG at 6 p.m. and Western Carolina on Saturday at 2 p.m. Wrapping us up this week, football had to reschedule their game against Charleston Southern. Pending playoffs, the two Charleston-based teams will face off on November 29th. This Saturday, the Dogs will travel to Macon, Georgia to take on conference opponent Mercer University. You can watch the game live on ESPN Plus at 4 p.m. And that was your Bulldog Breakdown. I'm Danielle Hensley. Go Dogs!
Style, selection, service, quality, value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
What does First Alert weather mean? It means you're connected
to the here, to the now,
to big changes before they happen.
From the everyday to the severe, you need a team that gives you the earliest alert.
When we know, you'll know.
Anywhere you are. Led by the most experienced meteorologist in the Lowcountry, Live 5 is your weather leader.
Not because we want to be first, because your safety comes first.
First Alert Weather, only from Live 5 News.
We build our communities. We earn our success. We, as South Carolinians, work best together. Don't follow your bank into the impersonal world of mergers. Make a change. Visit South Atlantic Bank to talk with local bankers who care about the Lowcountry. Our local headquarters will be ready next year on Johnny Dodds Boulevard. Until then, stop by our current location. You'll find a community bank with a proven track record of financial success. South Atlantic Bank. People you know and trust.
City street, a table in a cafe seat. I got it, I don't miss a beat, oh no. Walking down the avenue, be it gray or be it blue. Live 5 News everywhere I go. You're everywhere, got you everywhere.
does first alert weather mean? It means you're connected.
To the here, to the now.
To big changes before they happen.
From the everyday to the severe, you need a team that gives you the earliest alert.
When we know, you'll know.
Anywhere you are. Led by the most experienced meteorologist in the Lowcountry, Live 5 is your weather leader.
Not because we want to be first, because your safety comes first.
First Alert Weather, only from Live 5 News.
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
We welcome you back to the Marina Variety Store Restaurant here at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston. Our new location in 2018 for the Coach Brent Thompson Show. And we're happy to be here with the coach as we look ahead towards the Mercer game this weekend. But before we can move ahead, we first have to go back to the last time the Bulldogs were in action, which now was a week and a half ago after the most recent game was postponed due to Hurricane Florence. And we go all the way back to a week and a half ago, a tough loss here at home in the home opener against Chattanooga. For the Bulldogs this year, a 7-point loss at Wofford, then the 29-28 loss in overtime against Chattanooga at home about 10 days ago. And Coach, to think back to that game, a wild game back and forth after the Bulldogs fell behind early. You guys battled back, took a lead in overtime, ended up falling 1 point short in that overtime period, 29-28. Was it as much of a roller coaster on the sidelines as it was for us up in the press box during that game?
You know, it was at first. You know, I was a little bit nervous. We gave up some easy touchdowns, some big plays early on, and we really need to be a bend, don't break kind of a defense. We need to keep it in front of us, and when we don't, that starts to hit me a little bit. We didn't get out of our game plan offensively. I thought offensively we played better than we had against Wofford, which is to be expected. Wofford's coming off of they understand the offense about as good as anybody. Mm-hmm. They're coming off of a probably 8 to 10 days of practice on you, so you kind of expect that and you have a good understanding of it. But that works both sides of the ball. You know, our defense has got a good understanding of what they're doing as well. So those games typically go that way. But when you get into just a regular work week like we had with Chattanooga, I thought we had a pretty good chance, and I thought we had a good game plan going both sides of the ball. If we don't give up the big plays, we started to settle down defensively in the second half. On offense, I thought we were driving the ball and moving the ball well. We happened to be our own worst enemy for a couple of drives. We took a chop block penalty again, which is the second week in a row, unfortunately. Those things are going to happen in our offense. Unfortunately, they need to be a little bit more controllable, but sometimes they're not. With the new rules, it can be very, very challenging with those rules. You're going to lose a possession there when you're going 1st and 25. Then we turned the ball over as well on an early drive, and we needed to get points, whether it was a field goal or a touchdown. We should have had points, and we needed points in those two drives early on. Then to turn around and give the ball, give it away really quickly with a matter of 3 plays and some quick drives, that starts to hurt. The second half, I felt good when we were able to throw the ball down the field a little bit. Mm-hmm. We worked ourselves about 70 yards worth of passing down the field, and we scored on a 25-yard pass to Grant Drakeford. I felt good going into the half. The momentum was starting to turn. And then early on in the third quarter, I thought we put together a 15, 16-play drive that culminated in a touchdown that was able to tie the game up. And I thought we had them exactly where we wanted them at that point. We were leaning on them. We were wearing them down a little bit. And so I think we settled down at that point right at about the third quarter.
And then on the other side, Chattanooga had a lot of chances to put themselves in a position to win late in the game. A couple of missed field goals, the interception in the end zone, a nice play by Spann to keep the game where it was. As a coach, I'm sure you're never comfortable, you're never content. But when you see the way the Bulldogs are playing in that second half, was it almost just like on the sidelines feeling like, okay, we're in a good position, we should be able to pull this one out?
Luke, I didn't think I thought for sure we were going to win the football game with just the way the momentum was going in the third quarter. We slowed a little bit in the fourth quarter. They changed the defense up on us a little bit. It took us one drive to figure out what we needed to get done, and then we were able to back move the football again. And, they gave us a couple of opportunities. Of course, we missed a field goal when we had blocked the punt there. That doesn't help us out. The penalty on that one doesn't help us out either. Yep. We've got to hold our composure a lot better down there. you have the ball 1st and 5 on the 5, and you go the 1st and 10 on the 20. That's tough. We do end up getting a first down, but unfortunately the first down is 1st and 10 on the 10. And, of course, that's always a pain trying to get 10 yards there. So on a 1st and goal, really. So we needed points on that drive. We didn't get it. Unfortunately, those things happen. They did the same thing. You know, they missed their field goals as well. They turned it over in the end zone. It looked at some point that nobody was going to really try to win the football game. In overtime, I felt good where we were at in overtime.
And you went right in on that first possession, got the touchdown. I think only 3 plays to take the lead. All in all for the offense, as you kind of touched upon, despite some of the penalties and the 2 turnovers, it looked like the offense did take a nice step forward from game 1. You had nearly 300 rushing yards. Passing the football, you had a handful of completions compared to week 1. So despite the loss and some of the miscues offensively, it looked like still a step forward on that side of the football.
Well, first, I think we played hard on both sides of the ball. There's no doubt about it. I thought we were better conditioned. I thought we were ready to go. We were moving the football. What you notice in the offense right there is I went down the stat line at the end of the game. There's about 5 guys with 70, 80, 90 yards, and then there's 90 yards passing or so. So there's the stat line looks like a triple option offense right there. It doesn't look like it was one-dimensional with a B-back or a quarterback. It was all dimensions were working, and we were distributing the football, which is something that we look to be able to do. When you become one-dimensional and triple option, that can be very difficult. So I think that we were getting on track offensively, but when it all comes down to it, those tight ball games are tough to win. You need to win that football game, and we needed to win it. Unfortunately, we didn't.
We're recapping a tough 1-point loss in overtime at home against Chattanooga about 10 days ago here with Coach Thompson. And, Coach, looking at that overtime period, you guys get the touchdown, then Chattanooga gets the ball back. They score. They decide to go for 2 to put the game on the line. On the sideline, did you have any inclination that, hey, if they score, they may be going for 2? Was it a bit of a surprise for you and the Bulldogs? And then, of course, the play itself, certainly that may have seemed surprising.
Yeah, certainly. It's I probably knew that they were going to go for it at the time because, first of all, they weren't stopping us on defense. I knew that for a fact. I thought we rolled in pretty good. We had a pretty good plan going there. Second thing is that's kind of the rule of thumb on the road in overtime. You can go for 2 right there if you feel good about it. Third of all, they have a good 2-point play, right? I mean, if it wasn't a good 2-point play, the New England Patriots would be the champions, right? It's the same kind of play. It's the Philly special, essentially. So all those things put together, it's a great play called by them. They did a good job. We didn't do a great job of defending it. We did contemplate having a timeout called there. We had one in our pocket that I was sitting on, and I was asking Coach Harrell there, do we need one? Do we need one? Are we in a good defense? We were in a good defense there. Unfortunately, we just didn't play the man-to-man coverage that we were supposed to. We got fooled on the tight end was blocked down, and then we got off of it, and we were playing the reverse. And if you look at it and you go back and look at it, I saw it live out there, and I saw it on film as we're a step away from disrupting it in the backfield and them not getting the pitch off. But he certainly was wide open in the end zone.
Yeah, so you kind of just touched on it there, but as a defense, for a trick play like that, what can you do differently to defend that and keep that from happening?
You got to rep that play over and over again, and that was Coach Harrell and I spoke about it just last week, and it taught us both a lesson, and that is you need to work 2-point plays into your weekly practices just to make sure that you have them all covered. And it's not the first time that we've seen the Philly special. I believe Furman ran it on Wofford last year. And I don't think they got it. I think they didn't get it. And then I saw Navy run it last year, too. I mean, it's a fairly popular play that we should be prepared for.
Well, looking at a couple of different performances from that game and some of the good things that the Bulldogs did, because there was plenty of good things in the ball game. Freshman Clay Harris at the B-back position led the team in rushing. It was a balanced attack, as you mentioned, but after Lorenzo Ward carried the load in the first week, then it was a freshman who looked pretty good in week number 2, leading the way on the ground for you guys.
Yeah, not surprising. He's done it. We got him a few reps. We broke him in against Wofford. I think Clay is an up-and-coming in our offense. He's a great B-back for our offense. Both him and Amike, who is right behind him right there, and if I can get them all touches throughout the year, we are going to, because that's the future of that position there, and that's the future probably of the offense. Unfortunately, he did make a rookie mistake there, and he turned the ball over on a very important drive early on. But he's going to learn from that, and he's going to get better from that, and he's going to grow in that. And the fact that we had got him a little bit of confidence is it's going to help him out moving forward.
And the quarterback is always the most important position on the field. People like to pay a lot of attention to the quarterback. So now Jordan Black as your full-time starter this year, week 1 to week 2. What did you see from him in his progressions, and what did you like the second time out this year for Jordan?
There's 2 things that I noticed. Was he ran the ball with more authority, and he showed that in the overtime where he was the primary ball carrier, where we were trying to leave it in his hands, lean on him a little bit. But then you also see him distribute the ball where it needed to go in the pass game. We went right down there on the drive just before the half, and we scored the touchdown on. He was very confident in his throws. He had his eyes on the right spot. His throws were on target. That's always confidence moving forward. And unfortunately, when you take 7 days off, you've got to regain that a little bit. But I thought we were moving in the right direction.
And Jordan with a few completions that you touched on earlier to the A-backs on what looked like almost wheel routes up the sideline, about 3 in a row, one that led to the touchdown. What went into that drive that worked so well that the running backs got involved in the passing game and moved it right down the field? Yeah,
what you saw was some man-to-man coverage there, and they weren't getting their safeties over the top of it. So we saw it on the first one. We called it out of an over formation there into the boundary because it's a little bit of an easier throw into the boundary. Called it to see what was going on over there. It's hard for me to see on the far side of the field. But when I saw that we were getting open on that, we went ahead and called very similar routes out of different formations, and one ended up popping open and scoring like that. So if you see something in the way that they're playing it, you better take advantage of it early because those guys are good coaches on the other sideline. They're going to make an adjustment.
So with that said, a lot of the receptions coming from the running backs, you know a lot more. In fact, you've forgotten a lot more about this style of offense than I will ever know. Just one reception from a wide receiver through the first 2 games. Is that normal? Is that something that's somewhat concerning for this offense?
Yeah, we need to find a way to get more into our wide receiver. Now we threw the first play of the game to the wide receiver. We dropped it, unfortunately. But Curtis had the one catch on the whip route in this past game here. So, yeah, we've got to get our wideouts more involved in it. Those guys are more predominantly our deeper shot guys, and when we take a shot down the field, we need to make them count with those wide receivers.
And one of those guys, Riley Webb, had a couple of big catches last year, described as maybe the fastest guy in the team. He has yet to have a reception through the first 2 games. So what have you seen from his performance out there through the first 2 weeks?
Well, he's done a great job of blocking. He's a lot better in that department right there. Against Wofford, we couldn't find a way to get it open and get it protected enough. This last week, they just weren't giving it to us. They were playing man-to-man out there on us. So the A-backs were more open against the Chattanooga. But we certainly do need to find a way to get Raleigh open. He is definitely the fastest, the biggest target out there. And he needs to be more involved in the game planning. For those listening at home, watching online, or even joining us in the restaurant, you can get involved and pass along your questions by using the hashtag on Twitter, Ask Coach Thompson, and we'll pick out a few if you send in some good questions. One question online touched on this same subject that I was going to bring up anyways, and that's the 4th downs offensively. 7 for 10 on 4th down, so through 2 games, some may think that that's a lot of 4th down attempts. Granted, a lot of them coming when you're behind trying to catch up at times late in games, but 2, a good success rate as well. What goes into a decision, because you guys have done it even in the first half, to go for it on a 4th down? Well, it's how we're moving the football. It's sometimes it's just a gut feeling. Sometimes it's just a feeling that I get. Sometimes, we're in no man's land. We're somewhere crossing the 50-yard line, and we plan it in our head in our play calling. We plan to get 2 downs to get the first down in this phase. If it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, we need to eat up 4 or 5 yards and make it into a 4th and short that we know we can make. And against some of those teams, it can be very difficult. Wofford's very difficult to convert 4th downs on. We were able to convert a couple there. But I felt like we were in a good position, and we were rolling, and we had some momentum going when we were converting the 4th downs against Chattanooga. The one that probably sticks out the most in my mind it was probably the worst case scenario is we were right around the 20, 30-yard line on our own end, and we went for it. And it was a 4th and 2, it was a 4th and 3, but I felt very confident in putting it in the running back's hands. We put it in Lorenzo's hands right there. I felt confident that he was going to see it, he was going to find it. I felt confident in the play call, and I felt confident in the offensive line to be able to get the first down, which we did. So, he actually saved us right there. But we needed a good drive right there, and we went on a 16-play drive, and we were able to cap it off with a touchdown, and that's what we needed at the time. And sometimes you got to take risks. In this offense, we should be able to get 2 and 3 yards. We faked the punt. Once again, we put it in Lorenzo's hands. Unfortunately, we turned it over there. But we did have the first down, and I thought that was the right call at the time. All we're doing is just trying to get opportunities to win a football game or extend drives and maybe flip the field on them. And then there's a couple of other 4th downs in there that we may not have gone for. The one in the 4th quarter sticks out in the we had it 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, and I tried to get it on a pass play. We weren't going to take a shot right there. I was trying to flip the field more than anything. The other one that sticks out that we didn't go for was we had just crossed. We had just gotten the penalty, and it was around the 30-yard line. We netted out at 10 yards, but I had confidence in Matt. I mean, Matt Campbell can pin a ball down in there. I had confidence that we really needed to pin it, play the field position game. It was early in the game. We were out of field goal range. We were attempting to go for long 4th down there. That really wasn't the plan. We really just needed to pin it down at that point. So that was my thought process going through them all. The first one of the second half there, the one in the first half where we punted from our own 30, 35-yard line right there, which you would normally go for that, but the chop block penalty put us so far back. The 4th down in the fourth quarter right there, that one I had planned all along, that we just need to punt it and play field position there. And I felt confident in overtime. We were moving the ball, so we get a stop right there. We've got a pretty good chance to win the football game.
I'd like to dig a little deeper into 2 of those things. The first one being the fake punt. A lot of people just in general in football would consider that a bold play. You don't see a fake punt a whole lot, but it worked for you guys prior to the turnover, but you converted on that play enough to get what would have been a first down. A decision like that specifically, you decide you're going to go for it on a 4th down, but you're going to do it out of the punt formation. What goes into that decision to try to trick them in that sense, as opposed to just sending your offense back out there, lining up and trying to run a play to get the 4th down?
Well, Coach Gunner had the plan. He had the play. He said, I think we've got it. I said, okay, if you think we've got it, let's do it. He said, well, let me do this. Let me just check. So it's a check with me punt play. And if we didn't have it, we were going to call it off. We felt we had it, and we did have it. They backed up. We were moving forward. We caught the snap. We got the 4 or 5 yards that we needed, and on film it just got poked out. It was just not in a good spot. We needed to do better with the ball security right there. But something like that could turn the tide. That could turn the momentum right there. Is you can win the football game on a fake punt, because it's something that you think, you got them. They're going to punt the ball here. We're going to get the ball back. We're going to drive down and score. And the next thing you know, they don't have the ball. So that was everything that we thought in the thought process. And I was going into the game saying that we needed to be aggressive.
And not only could a fake punt change the momentum, but also a blocked punt. And Keontae Sessions, if I'm reading the stat line correctly, has a couple of special teams tackles, the block punt, forced fumble recovery. He's done a lot of things other than just running the football out of the backfield, and that was certainly a big play to block the punt there.
Keontae he's an exceptional football player. You wouldn't really know it because everything he does, he just does it really well. He's not going to be the fastest guy on the field, but he's going to know where to go. He's going to know how to get there. He's going to know all the schemes involved. He's got great, terrific hands, I'm telling you. He's a great pass receiver. He was a great running back in high school. Played some defense in high school. He's an all-around just a good football player, and he's only a sophomore for us. Having been able to coach him and work with him one-on-one as I do right now, coaching the A-backs, I didn't realize what we really had. I took it for granted. He's lost a lot of weight. He's got himself into good shape. He's under 200 pounds, and he's about as fit as he's ever been.
And then lastly, on the special teams, you mentioned it, but your freshman punter, another game, another good performance to talk about. Nearly half of his punts have been pinned inside the 20. That's got to be a big weapon to be able to switch field position like that, and especially getting it from just a freshman. Yeah,
it's definitely a weapon for us, and it's something that you do think about. Usually when we're just going to punt the ball away right here, but you do start to play the field position game with them. Hey, we're at the midfield right here. No need to take any chances. Let's just try to pin this thing because I know we can.
Yeah, and he had another good game in that tough loss against Chattanooga a week and a half ago, falling 29-28 in overtime here in Charleston. It's the Coach Brent Thompson Show, coming to you live from the Marina Variety Store restaurant located at 17 Lockwood Drive here in downtown Charleston. Great views, great seafood, and good wings as well for Coach. It's a great spot. Come and join us not only here every Wednesday night, but even when we're not at the restaurant, come out and enjoy a nice meal at the Marina Variety Store restaurant. We're happy to be here all season long for the Coach's Show here in 2018. For those listening at home, you can get involved using the hashtag AskCoachThompson to submit your questions for tonight as we're here until the top of the hour. And after looking back at that Chattanooga game, we can now look ahead towards the upcoming game this weekend, where the Bulldogs not only get back to it on the football field after the weekend off due to the storm, but also back into conference play with a trip to Georgia to take on the Mercer Bears. We'll preview that game and more coming up next here on the Coach's Show on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
Hey Bulldog fans, I'm Danielle Hensley, and this is your Bulldog Breakdown. Due to Hurricane Florence, some athletic events were canceled last week, including women's soccer against Jacksonville. They'll start play this week on Friday at Samford before traveling to Chattanooga on Sunday to take on the Mocs at 2 p.m. Volleyball had to postpone their match at Winthrop, which was originally scheduled for last Tuesday. This week, the Dogs will take the court at South Carolina State on Wednesday before starting conference play on Friday. They will host UNCG at 6 p.m. and Western Carolina on Saturday at 2 p.m. Wrapping us up this week, football had to reschedule their game against Charleston Southern. Pending playoffs, the two Charleston-based teams will face off on November 29th. This Saturday, the Dogs will travel to Macon, Georgia to take on conference opponent Mercer University. You can watch the game live on ESPN Plus at 4 p.m. And that was your Bulldog Breakdown. I'm Danielle Hensley. Go Dogs!
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store. Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley
Build our
Furniture.
communities. We earn our success. We, as South Carolinians, work best together. Don't follow your bank into the impersonal world of mergers. Make a change. Visit South Atlantic Bank to talk with local bankers who care about the Low Country. Our local headquarters will be ready next year on Johnny Dodds Boulevard. Until then, stop by our current location. You'll find a community bank with a proven track record of financial success. South Atlantic Bank. People you know and trust.
What does first alert weather mean? It means you're connected
To the here, to the now.
To big changes before they happen.
From the everyday to the severe, you need a team that gives you the earliest alert.
When we know, you'll know.
Anywhere you are. Led by the most experienced meteorologist in the Low Country, Live 5 is your weather leader.
Not because we want to be first, because your safety comes first.
First alert weather, only from Live 5 News.
Corners of a city street, a table in a cafe seat. I got it, I don't miss a beat. Oh no. Walking down the avenue, be it gray or be it blue. Live 5 News everywhere I go. You're everywhere, got you everywhere. Everywhere I go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Everywhere I go.
Store. Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Football coach Brent Thompson from the Citadel Bulldogs here till the top of the hour, and now looking towards the upcoming game Saturday against Mercer on the road as the Bulldogs get back into conference play after the weekend off due to the storm, and so they'll be playing for the first time in 2 weeks, heading over to Georgia, about a 4-hour trip for Saturday's game with a 4 o'clock kickoff against Mercer. And Coach, now with that postponement, as we touched on in the opening of the show. It leads to 3 straight games in the conference. It's the first time that the Citadel has opened the season with 3 straight conference games since, I think, 1926, when they were in a different conference. So how challenging is that to jump into the season with 3 straight out of the gate here against the Southern Conference?
Yeah, certainly not ideal. You would like to have at least 1 or 2 out just to be able to get yourself tuned in a little bit. But that's the way these things go, and you really don't worry about the things that you can't control. We don't make the schedule. We fill in part of the schedule, but the conference fills in the rest of it. So we've got to really play the hand that we're dealt and just kind of deal with it.
I asked you before the Chattanooga game, so I'll update the question now. At 0-2 in the conference, how big of a difference is it to start 1-2 with a win at Mercer compared to what could be 0-3?
Well, I think more importantly is you've got a Mercer team here that just made a statement in the league. Mm-hmm. And I told our guys when they came back on Monday that if you want to make a statement in the league, now you've got an opportunity there. They just went ahead and knocked off a pretty good football team in Sanford. We still got a chance here. There's going to be some losses here, and I do think Wofford's a very good team, but you also have one of those teams that just lost at the top of the league right there, and you don't know how UTC is going to play it out as well. So there's still a lot of good teams, 1 through 7 or 8 are still up for grabs, I think, in the top of the league. So we're going to play this thing out and give it our best and see how the things play out.
And Mercer entering the weekend with a 2-1 record. Kind of tough to figure them out at first. They lost against an FBS team in Memphis. They got beat pretty bad, and then they beat a non-scholarship Jacksonville team at home pretty bad. And then that led to the game that you just referenced this past weekend when they upset Samford with a win and beating Samford for the first time since 1932. Before they had discontinued the football program for a while. And for Mercer, just their 4th win ever against a ranked opponent. Samford, I believe, was number 9 at the time. And Mercer came away with a big victory. So with that said, 3 games into the season, you've been watching the film. What's your feel for this Mercer team? What do you see from the Bears on tape through the first 3 games, and especially most recently in that nice win against Samford?
Yeah, I always thought Mercer was a sleeping giant. They were tough to beat in recruiting. They've got a great recruiting area. They've got nice facilities there. They've got a good academic school. So they've got a lot of the very positive things going for them right now. They're an up-and-coming program. They're led by a good football coach. He's been around the conference, knows what he's doing. So it's not surprising where they're at. With that being said, though, I still think we do have a pretty good chance here. We've played them tight. They've played us tight. I think they play well on defense. They've got a new offense working there. Very similar to the old one, but a little bit more wrinkles to it. I think Coach Pizzo does a great job of calling the plays. I watched the whole game against Samford, and he changes it up fairly well. So I do think that those guys are heading in the right direction. I think they've got the talent to be able to make some noise in the league, and of course they've got the coaching.
You said you watched the game against Samford. I'm curious about this. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, and when the Vikings were getting ready to play the Packers, they asked Coach Zimmer if he had watched the Packers game previously, the Sunday night game. He said no, he doesn't even own a TV at home. That's what he said. But, the coaches watch the film so much during the week already. But for you in this situation, with the storm, no game, you had some time off. So did you watch it live over the weekend prior to then digesting it with the film all week?
Yeah, I did, and you just couldn't help yourself but watch it. Mm-hmm. First of all, I had purchased ESPN Plus, so I felt like I had to get my money's worth out of it. So I did watch that one. Not only did I watch that one, I watched the VMI ETSU game, which took place, I believe, on Friday. And I think those were the 2 games that I watched off of ESPN Plus, and I was skipping around on a few other games. But getting back to the Mercer game, yeah, I did watch most of it. I was in and out. I watched it as I worked out a couple times, and then I rewatched it from both the offense and defensive perspective, separate when we got back into the office. And of course, there's not a whole lot to do. So not a whole lot to do last week. So that was one of the things that I really wanted to plan on watching and doing. There are certain things that you can pick up from a TV copy. For instance, the check with me's and stuff like that. Is you don't know, they can cut that off the film very easily. Right. You don't get a sense or a flow of the game when you watch the offense and the defense separately, or how things played out. It's always good to watch the game in its entirety that way as well. And you get a feel for really what the game was. It was a close ball game, but Mercer came out, stung them early, kept the lead for a little while, and forced Samford to come back. And Samford is a quick strike offense, and they can move the ball quickly down the field. If they had more opportunities to make some plays down the field, I think they really could have won the football game. But Mercer did a good job of keeping it in front of them.
And so Mercer coming off that win against Sanford, now welcome in coach and the Bulldogs this upcoming Saturday. And as Coach, as you mentioned, you've been impressed with Mercer over the years. They were picked in the preseason poll to finish, I believe, 6th in the conference, but maybe will now do a little bit better than that this year. And they're led by a new starting quarterback in Rob Riddle, as Mercer split the quarterbacks through the first couple of games, and then it was all Riddle last time out. Looks like he won the job. Redshirt freshman playing for the first time at this level. What did you see from him that you guys will have to worry about come Saturday?
Well, first of all, he played like an upperclassman. He didn't play truly like a redshirt freshman. Is you watch him distribute and run the ball. He does it very effectively. Not a blazer, but can run it very well. Makes good, quick decisions. Puts the ball on the money. And then I also thought the play calling helped him out. Is they're able to run the football, and when you're able to run the football, throw it very effectively. They took a couple of chances downfield. They hit the one big one in the third quarter. That I thought was a great call. When you're just going to take a shot, let's just take it down the field there. But other than that, they hit them with some counters. They were running the zone game fairly effectively. They were getting Sanford to play the pass, and then all of a sudden they hit him with a run. So I was really amazed at how well he did, just changing up his calls.
And it's a new offensive coordinator. The previous offensive coordinator is still on the staff, but a new offensive coordinator that they brought in. Obviously, you play Mercer every year. Is the offense that much different with a new play caller this year compared to what you guys have had to prepare for in past seasons?
Yeah, a little less gap scheme. They used to be a big power team, a little less gap scheme. But other than that, you're still defending the RPOs. Everybody's got the RPOs except for us anymore. A little bit of a different style. But we've played him. He was the offense coordinator at North Greenville when we played him, and we've had some goes when we were at Lenore Ryan against them. So he's kept very similar to those games that we played against him there. So he's got a pattern. He knows what he's going to do, and he does it fairly well.
And again, to my untrained football eye, it seems to be somewhat of a unique offense in the sense that they try to spread you out, but at the same time, at least last week, they were very ball control oriented and running the football out of that spread formation.
That's the uniqueness of it. They can put a tight end in the game. They can use him as an H-back. They can run him down the field on a pass route. So they're able to run the football more effectively than you would think a lot of those other spread teams would be.
We are talking with Coach Thompson about the upcoming game here against Mercer this weekend. Got to take a break as we're a little bit behind schedule, but when we come back, we'll continue to break down the upcoming matchup Saturday in Georgia in the Southern Conference between the Bears and the Bulldogs. Still time to send in your questions. Use hashtag AskCoachThompson on Twitter, as we have one more segment to go before the Bulldogs get prepped and ready for the game Saturday against Mercer. It's the Coach's Show from the Marina Variety Store Restaurant. We'll be back with more here on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
What does First Alert weather mean? It means you're connected.
To the here, to the now.
To big changes before they happen.
From the everyday to the severe, you need a team that gives you the earliest alert.
When we know, you'll know.
Anywhere you are. Led by the most experienced meteorologist in the Lowcountry, Live 5 is your weather leader.
Not because we want to be first, because your safety comes first.
First Alert Weather, only from Live 5 News.
We build our communities. We earn our success. We, as South Carolinians, work best together. Don't follow your bank into the impersonal world of mergers. Make a change. Visit South Atlantic Bank to talk with local bankers who care about the Lowcountry. Our local headquarters will be ready next year on Johnny Dodds Boulevard. Until then, stop by our current location. You'll find a community bank with a proven track record of financial success. South Atlantic Bank, people you know and trust.
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Hey Bulldog fans, I'm Danielle Hensley, and this is your Bulldog Breakdown. Due to Hurricane Florence, some athletic events were canceled last week, including women's soccer against Jacksonville. They'll start play this week on Friday at Samford before traveling to Chattanooga on Sunday to take on the Mocs at 2 p.m. Volleyball had to postpone their match at Winthrop, which was originally scheduled for last Tuesday. This week, the Dogs will take the court at South Carolina State on Wednesday before starting conference play on Friday. They will host UNCG at 6 p.m. and Western Carolina on Saturday at 2 p.m. Wrapping us up this week, football had to reschedule their game against Charleston Southern. Pending playoffs, the two Charleston-based teams will face off on November 29th. This Saturday, the Dogs will travel to Macon, Georgia to take on conference opponent Mercer University. You can watch the game live on ESPN Plus at 4 p.m. And that was your Bulldog Breakdown. I'm Danielle Hensley. Go Dogs!
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
First alert weather means you're connected.
To the here, to the now.
To big changes before they happen.
From the everyday to the severe, you need a team that gives you the earliest alert.
When we know, you'll know.
Anywhere you are. Led by the most experienced meteorologist in the Lowcountry, Live 5 is your weather leader.
Not because we want to be first, because your safety comes first.
First Alert Weather, only from Live 5 News.
Marina Variety Store Restaurant for one final segment here in the Coach Brent Thompson Show from 17 Lockwood Drive, where we will be every Wednesday night here from 7 to 8 during the football season. Hope you can join us at the Marina Variety Store Restaurant. And tonight, getting ready for the Bulldogs' trip to Georgia to take on the Mercer Bears Saturday in the Southern Conference. A great crowd with us tonight here at the restaurant. And, Coach, it includes your adorable daughters, your family is here. And one positive, I'm sure, during that downtime with the storm is that you got to spend some more time with the family.
Yeah, we certainly did. It was actually kind of nice. We did have some quiet time. You could have gone anywhere in Charleston. It was fairly quiet down there. Obviously, not a whole lot was open, but we did go downtown and have lunch. We drove the golf cart around a little bit downtown. Enjoyed town for a change. You don't get to enjoy it too much during the season. And really had an opportunity to kind of take a breath and relax for 1 second.
And now back to football with this game at Mercer coming up Saturday. A tough conference opponent. Mercer 2-1, coming off a bit of an upset win at Samford last week, and now welcoming the Bulldogs. But the Citadel all-time 3-0 playing at Mercer. I've been there before. It's a bit of a bandbox. The crowd can get loud there. What is it like as a road team to go into that stadium and take on the Bears?
Yeah, it's always a good environment there. I think they've done a good job. They've built up the facilities very nice. They've got seating all around it. There's people that hang out everywhere over there. So the first time that I was there, I was in the box, and it was a freezing cold later in the year kind of a game. The last time that I was there was my first game of the year, so I've got fond memories of the place. But it's also, the band does happen to play right behind you right there. So when we were a no-huddle team, that could be a little bit difficult but in communication. But right now is, we're mostly a huddle team, so that it takes a little bit of that out of it.
Yeah, your last trip there was, as you said, the first game of the year and won on a late field goal. And so a dramatic win for the Bulldogs the last time at Mercer. You'll be returning there for the first time since then. When you walk into that stadium, will it bring back some nice memories from your debut with the win there?
You know, it took me a couple of minutes to realize it may have been late in the day, Monday or Tuesday, and I realized, I was like, this is the start of it all, was here. So, yeah, I will have some fond memories of it, of course. That was a great ball game. We had jumped out to an early 21-0 lead, I think, and then they battled back, and we ended up needing to drive the fourth quarter drive, and we had a great field goal to finish it off.
Mercer brought football back in 2013 after about 50 years, I think it was, without having it. And since then, the Bulldogs have taken 3 out of 4. But other than last year, all the games decided by one score. And then last year was a 24-14 loss here at home. against Mercer in a game that featured 6 fumbles from the Bulldogs, which was about half of your season total in that one game. Was it a case of anything that Mercer did? You know, back in the day with the Chicago Bears with Lovie Smith, they were always swinging at footballs. Was it something that Mercer was doing defensively, or just your guys not holding onto the ball well enough?
Probably a combination of both. We certainly gave a few of them away. We missed a block in the goal line. I mean, we had turnovers in the end in the red zone that really hurt us, and that was part of the dilemma and part of the problem going into the offseason that we were going to make sure that we fixed. So I think we've done a little bit better of a job in the red zone. We're doing a little bit better job of taking care of the football. Unfortunately, we gave it away twice last week. But I do think that it played a huge role in the game, and the game would have been closer. I don't know that we would have won the football game, but we certainly would have been a little bit closer to it. We didn't play well enough overall.
Looking at some numbers, and I don't want to bring these up to upset you, but when the Bulldogs in your time as head coach are trailing after the first quarter, the team is 2-8. But when you're leading after the first quarter, 13-2, that offense, of course, always plays well with the lead when you can control the football and such. How important is it for a fast start? The team has gotten behind 14-0 each of the first 2 weeks on the road against Mercer. How important is it to come out in that first quarter and build a lead this time?
It's going to be paramount, really, as we discussed it as a staff. And nobody wanted to discuss it coming out of the Chattanooga game, but we sat down as a staff and said, what do we need to do? Here it is 2 weeks in a row. We need to start to address it now. We can't get behind early. We've got to put some drives together. We've got to take care of the football a little bit better. We've got to stay off the penalties. But really, so during practices, we've gone out in the first period of the last 2 practices. We've gone out and gone against offense versus defense. And really, we're just trying to put an emphasis on it and try to make us a little bit better, make us more aware of the fact that we've got to get better starts.
When looking at the film, is there anything that stands out to you as to why the teams have gotten off to a slow start, or is it just a case of it takes them a little while to get going?
Well, I think more than anything on defense we're young, and in the secondary we're young, and we gave up big plays there, and that's unfortunate. But on the offensive side is really we didn't convert a 4th down. We had a good drive going against Wofford, and we didn't convert a 4th down. I think we got behind the sticks on 1st down, which we can't do. We can't get off track there. We tried a reverse play that didn't work. It was a terrible call by myself. And then this one, it was a penalty and it was a turnover. Those were the first 2 drives. Other than that, if you don't shoot yourself in the foot, get yourself off to a better start, drive the football, I think you got a chance.
Jordan Black somewhat returning home this week, playing at Mercer, which is about 90 minutes away from where he grew up. In week 1, going back to Spartanburg, you had Aaron Spann returning to his home. Just in general, is there anything you do differently as a coach to make sure the player is focused on the game and not getting too hyped up when they know a lot of family and friends will be in attendance?
No, believe it or not, this is the second time that he did start here. So I think he's got a sense of what the stadium brings to him, too. And it may bring back some fond memories. That was his first and only his first and only kind of continuous game that he did win that year for. So he's probably got the same memories that I do of the game. So he'll be a little bit ramped up. But one thing Jordan is he's very, very calm.
And lastly, here in about 60 seconds, what are some keys to make sure that you guys go to Mercer and come back with a victory?
Well, it certainly is play our football game. We've got to be simple. We've got to be fundamental because of the time that we did take off. So we've got to make sure that we're executing at a high level where we kind of left off on offense, driving the football, having some confidence. I think we came out of the Chattanooga game with some confidence on both sides of the ball. We got some stops there. We got an interception there. We got some turnovers there. We are going to have a couple of key guys back that weren't playing in those games. Sean Thomas Faulkner, who had broken his hand, is back. He will be in the starting lineup for us this week. So that always helps. He's a sophomore, but he's a redshirt freshman, but he's very, very smart football player, knows what to do. So I think that'll help us on the defensive side to at least give us some more depth where we were starting a true freshman last 2 weeks. So those are really the keys for us, is just get off to a good start. Try to stay away from the penalties and the turnovers as usual, and don't give up the big play. Keep the ball in front of us. Make them drive the ball. And if we can try to make them one-dimensional, we've got to take the run game away from them. Well,
Coach, we look forward to the kickoff Saturday, and we hope certainly for a Bulldogs win. We appreciate your time tonight, like every Wednesday, and your candidacy and your candid answers with us tonight, and wish you the best of luck Saturday at Mercer.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it, man. I'll see you out there, and I'll see you next week.
Absolutely. We look forward to it. That's Coach Brent Thompson here for the Coaches Show. Well, remember, we'll be back here next Wednesday at the Marina Variety Store, 7 to 8. Come join us in person. And if you can't, you can always listen right here on the radio or online if you're watching the online YouTube stream. The Bulldogs will be in action this Saturday at Mercer. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff. If you're not not making the trip to Georgia, you can catch all the action on the radio home of the Bulldogs with pregame coverage beginning at 2 on our sister stations, 102.1 FM, 92.1 FM, 1450 AM here in the Charleston area, but on different stations throughout South Carolina, depending on where you are. You can catch that game with coverage beginning at 2, kickoff at 4. We will talk to you then Saturday from Mercer, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday from the Marina Variety Store Restaurant for the next Coach Brent Thompson Show a week from tonight, 7 p.m., right here on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.